Hey, it's Drybear. One of the biggest games on the horizon for us gamers right now is Baldur's Gate 3, which is releasing on PC next week, August 3rd. PS5 coming in September 6th, and hopefully Xbox at some point. But if you're a hardcore CRPG fan, you probably knew all this already and are very excited for the release. And while I've been polling my audience and talking to you guys about games and upcoming options for playing games, Baldur's Gate 3 has stood out as a game that either you know all about and you love, or you don't really know much about it and you're wondering what's going on with this game and why everyone is so hyped about it. So I wanted to make a video talking directly to the people that don't normally play CRPGs and want to know a little bit more about Baldur's Gate and why it's awesome. But first, you should come hang out with me on my live stream. I'm live every single day on twitch.tv/Drybear. If you don't come hang out with me in the community, then your Wi-Fi today will be one less bar connectivity than it usually is. All right, let's talk through Baldur's Gate 3 and what makes these kinds of games so special for so many people. Again, I'm talking to the people that don't normally play CRPGs, any of the myriad of titles that are out there that are really awesome, or just generally don't dive into this kind of game at all and are wondering why people love it so much. So we're gonna go through that exactly today. Baldur's Gate 3 is a RPG. It's a role-playing game at its core. And unlike other versions and extensions of RPGs, it does take this to its limit, like most of the CRPGs do. And what I mean by this is that typically with action or adventure or MMO RPGs, you end up just kind of going through what is more or less a linear playthrough of story, and your expression comes with the gameplay and how you build your character. But CRPGs go much, much further. If you play into the BioWare games with their romance system and their bounty systems and things like that, it really takes it to the fullest, because every single step of the way, you are crafting your own personal adventure with these sort of games, and that's why they take so dang long to develop. This game in particular has been in development for a very long time and has been in early access for a very long time as well. And with the developers coming and talking about what's available in the game, the total numbers come to about over 170 hours of cutscene content. And what this means is not that you're going to watch one cutscene after another for a very, very long movie. It's more just that you have lots of breadth, different choices and reactions and interactions between every one of the characters that you meet, the encounters that you run into, the bosses and decisions that you make. And so with 170 plus hours of cutscene content built into the game, you really have a ton of choice on how you approach going through the story, what you can do, and how you can shape your destiny. On top of that, the writers for the game that have been working on this for a very long time have touted that there are over tens of thousands of different endings for the game, meaning that the path that you take and how you get there, possibly every single person that you talk to about Baldur's Gate 3, everyone that you watch and see, it's possible that tens of thousands of them, that you may never meet someone that has the exact same ending in the game that you did, because you chose different choices, you played differently, you chose different companions, you said different things, and those things lead to different endings and different results. And they have mentioned there's 17,000 was the last number I heard around how many possible endings there are for Baldur's Gate 3. And so it's really a game that you want to envelop yourself in, get lost in, and run around and explore and play it however you want. You can be evil, you can be good, you can take the front door, you can sneak into the back, you can set up traps, you can blow off environments. There's different ways you can approach every single step, including the dialogue, which is a big part of CRPGs. As you are going through the world and talking to characters and meeting new people, you will have the option to choose your dialogue, and there will be base dialogue options of just saying certain things, but based on how your character is comprised, you can actually do different things too, like read their mind, or try to convince them, or cast something, or try to force them in some way, or intimidate them. You can do things that your character may excel at based on the stats that you choose, the class that you have, and the skill set that you've brought along. And these choices extend to not only your character, but the people around you and the company that you keep. You will be able to choose characters that can join your party to help you overcome challenges, and you will get to know these people and talk to them and make decisions and watch them make decisions as you go throughout the story. But unlike a typical RPG, every single step of the way, they're judging you and you're judging them, and it's possible that they may end up hating your guts based on how you conduct yourself, and they may just leave your party without your choice because they just don't want to be around you. And the opposite is also true. Based on your choices and how you move through the world, they may fall in love with you and you can romance them, you can end up making love with them and connecting with them on a romantic level, and all of this is based on the choices that you make. Say, for example, a character doesn't like the fact that you always force people to do, like you intimidate them and force them to do what you want them to do. They will then start pulling away from you, and there's different alignment options there, or there's different choices that end up in the day. There's no alignment system like there are in previous games. But the romance is a really big part of this, and it also leads into the company that you have with your character, which leads itself to have not only your very own personal journey through the game, but also allows you to have very high replayability, because you can come back in, and even without intentionally trying, you may end up having a completely different path, not only from your character choices, right? Your race may have different interactions. If you meet someone of the same race, there may be dialogue options that are available based on that. You might meet characters that have preconceived notions about your race, and they'll treat you differently because of the race that you have, the class that you have, the background that you have, the experience that you have as a character. All of these things play a major role in your movement through the world and how people react to you. For gameplay, it is a turn-based game, but it is more tactical than most turn-based games. It's not going to be like your fixed perspective. You get the option to move around in combat and use elevation, use environmental effects, and you can even scout out the area, use perception to reveal sneaky paths or traps or things like that, or you can find ledges that you can shove enemies off of. You can grease the ground so enemies will slip and fall. You can set things on fire that burn them. You can coat your weapon in fire. You can put water down and electrocute it. You can do all kinds of crazy things that make the environment itself very tactical and very interesting when you're doing that. Now, it is based on D&D 5th edition, so 5e, and it will be a lot of rolls. So you'll have to do your roll checks to see if you pass checks, if you fail, and there will be some randomness in the encounters. Like, you may miss even though you had a high chance of hitting. You may dodge, the enemy may dodge you. You may fail an escape. You may fail a saving throw. All of these things can play into the outcome, which again adds to the replayability of a game like this. And it also heavily rewards exploration. There's actually a ton of stuff. They've touted that every area has many, many secrets to it that you can't even see until you get right up on top of it and pass a perception check to see if you can see it. Things that are hidden behind the brush or a loose rock or behind a false wall that you wouldn't have otherwise known about, that may give you an advantage or may give you special loot or some kind of strength that you didn't have before. And I think one of the big concerns for people that are just getting into CRPGs or trying to try out Baldur's Gate 3 is that they can very easily become overwhelmed. Because when you go to make your character, you're choosing your race, you're choosing your class, you're choosing your subclass, you're choosing your point allocation based on things you may not even understand yet. And these things can be very off-putting for people that are new to the genre, that may not know what exactly they're supposed to do or how they're supposed to do it. And for this, there's a couple systems that Larian have put into Baldur's Gate 3 that make it a lot more accessible for people that are new to the genre. The first is that they have detached the ability scores from the race. You can just kind of pick your class in any race combination. It's less restrictive in that way, which is really nice. If you really don't know what you want to do, they allow you to pick from a subset of origin characters, which are real people in the story world that exist. They have their own kind of set of attributes, storyline, voice lines. It's a pre-built character that you can choose different customization options on. But if you really don't want to make a custom character and RP your own background or trying to make your own kind of experience, you can just roleplay as one of their built characters, and they have some pretty awesome ones to choose from. And the third thing, which actually at first was kind of hated by a lot of people that are Baldur's Gate or tabletop fans, that isn't actually as common in these sorts of games, and that is you're allowed to respec your character throughout the story. And a lot of purists or traditionalists didn't like this because it meant that your choices mattered less, because you could just start as a class and then respec halfway through and change to a different class. Some people argued that it would ruin replayability because you could just respec to every single class along the way, get the full experience, and only play once. But I think it's actually really good for a genre like this, especially if they're trying to get new players into the CRPG genre, because it means that if you say you want to play a caster and you chose sorcerer, and then partway through, you know, you're a couple hours in, or maybe 5-10 hours in, and you realize that sorcerer isn't for you, you really still want to play a caster, but maybe wizard is better, or maybe warlock is better. And allowing you to respec not only takes off the burden of new players making what they think is the wrong choice for stat allocation or for picking a class, but it also means that they can re-customize their experience to tailor it even better to finish that playthrough. And I know a lot of people, myself included, are guilty of starting a game, getting partway through it, realizing there's something you want to change about it, but you can't be arsed to go and restart the story again, so you kind of put it away for a while. You come back, you don't want to pick up your save from that was partially through the game, so you decide to restart again, but then again, you can't be arsed, so you just give up and you never finish the game in general. So I think the respec system, while maybe some people may not like it, I think it's very good for people that are new to the genre, or just making the game more accessible and more modern, so that if you need to respec, if there's some kind of issue that you want to fix about your character, or maybe you find something, some rare item, some relic, some weapon, some legendary piece of gear that changes everything, and you really want to do it, but you don't have the stat allocation you need to use it, or you don't have the proficiencies that you need, or you need something else, you can just respec and get that and continue on through the story, which I think is really good for the game. Now, if there's interest, I can go through and make separate videos for the classes and the multi-classing options in Baldur's Gate 3 for those that are kind of curious of what class they want to play, if they want a multi-class or not, and how that plays into their gameplay. But for this kind of video, I just want to talk through a little bit of the class options and how it changes how you interact with the world. There are 12 base classes to choose from in Baldur's Gate. All of those classes have multiple subclasses that they can specialize in that make a very big difference. For example, warlocks they get their magical power by binding and swearing fealty to powerful beings from various locations. And so obviously the subclasses for warlock are the different kinds of beings, the patrons that they swear fealty to in order to gain their power. You can swear fealty to, hellish minions, fiends, great old ones, so ancient deities that have crazy Cthulhu powers that come out of nowhere, and you can also do like archfays, like ancient fairy magic, things like that. So there's a lot of different ways you can play that change your character experience and make different abilities and playstyles available to you. There are martial classes that focus on straight up combat, like the fighter, the rogue. There are hybrid classes that have a little bit of both, like monk or ranger. There are pure casters that focus on casting and having spell options, like druid or warlock or wizard or sorcerer or cleric that focus on healing magic or holy magic. There are crazy burst, insane upfront damage dealers like barbarian or paladin that can swing massive weapons and do massive damage. And even inside each of these classes, they can get quite varied as well. The wizard can specialize in, I think, 8 different schools of magic, illusion, enchantment, all kinds of different things, different styles of playing the game. You can specialize sorcerers into dragon magic, storm magic. You can have all kinds of different ways to play those. The paladins are a cross between fighter and cleric, so they essentially are a melee fighting version of a cleric. And the way they work is they swear an oath, and what that oath is determines what their playstyle will be. But you can actually break your oath. So if you have an oath to protect all innocents, and then in the game you decide to just randomly kill an innocent, you will break your oath, become an oath breaker, which is basically like a dark paladin. It'll give you dark magic and corrupted magic, and you become kind of evil. So there's all these kind of different ways that you can change your character, and based on your character's choices and how you play through the game, everything can be different. And this is where the companion system comes in clutch, because obviously if you decide to go for a specific playstyle, that playstyle is going to have strengths and weaknesses in an encounter. If you decide to play a caster that has no proficiencies in armor, and you're just going to be wearing cloth, you obviously aren't going to be able to take any hits. You're going to be very squishy. So you may want to customize your companion party to have tanky options, supporting options to make sure that you don't get attacked as much. And if you do, you can be protected and safe. If you decide to go for a sneaky stealth trap-based build, or like an assassin rogue, something like that, you may want to have more characters that can keep up with you If you play a melee or upfront burster or barbarian, maybe you want to go crazy and just run down the front gate, and you need to have enough supporting companions to make sure that you aren't dead when all the dust is settled. The most up-to-date estimate that we have on the length of Baldur's Gate 3 for a single playthrough, Larian has stated anywhere from 60 to 80 hours. And I think this is a conservative estimate for your average player, or maybe for players that don't normally play these kinds of games. I think that if you are someone who is a CRPG hardcore diehard fan and you want to leave no stone left unturned, you could probably easily get anywhere from 100 to 200 hours per playthrough. But I think the average person who just wants to experience the story and express their character will probably get a good 60 to 80 hours through that first playthrough. But again, these games are meant to be played multiple times, and you'll get completely different results every single time. And if the writers at Larian are to be believed, and with 17,000 different endings that you could possibly have in the game, with over 170 hours of cutscenes that you can run into or activate or sneak break, you could probably play a game like this for a year straight and still not see everything that the game has to offer. And for that reason, I think Baldur's Gate 3 has the biggest bid for Game of the Year this year. It's definitely one of the games to be keeping an eye on. And honestly, whether you're a fan of the genre or not, it's definitely a game that only comes around every so often. Every 5 to 10 years, we get a game like this. So if you're someone that's kind of like on the fence about this, or maybe you haven't played these games before, or you're a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of systems and decisions you have to make, I can certainly make that easier for you with more guides. If you're interested, comment down below if that's something that you would like to see. But I wanted to make this video for people that may be a little bit new or kind of on the fence about it, to help convince them that this might be the game for them. If you found value in this video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people. And of course, I'll see you on my live stream. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.